All right, good afternoon and welcome to Space Launch Complex 40 here at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. I'm Chris Gebhardt, the Assistant Managing Editor of NASASpaceflight, and you are looking live at the Falcon 9 rocket that will be tasked with taking the 20th and final CRS-1 cargo Dragon mission up to the International Space Station. Launch is currently set for 23, 50, and 31 seconds. An instantaneous single-second launch window tonight for the Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is a veteran of those single-second launch windows. So all eyes are on the weather. We currently have about a 60 to 70% chance of acceptable weather conditions. The primary concern will be ground winds, which are anticipated to be between 25 and 30 miles per hour. They have been trending lower today, which is a good sign. And Mike McAleen, the weather officer for the 45th Weather Squadron here at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, says that he doesn't actually anticipate a lot of issues tonight with winds on the ground, but there is that 40 to 30% chance of violation. He did say that while the official forecast stands at a 60% chance of favorable weather conditions, that if they were actually issuing a new forecast today, he would have gone with a 70% chance of acceptable conditions. So overall, things do look to be trending very better, as do the upper level winds. We do have the jet stream hanging across us right now in Central Florida, but one good thing about tonight is that all of the winds are generally going the same direction or changing direction very slowly as you ascend through the atmosphere. So the worry about wind shear is moderate, not high, but moderate, and they think they will be okay based on the trends. But of course, it's the weather, anything can happen. A gorgeous sunset happening behind Pad 40 here. You can see various members of the media setting up. That's John Kraus giving the and Tony. It is in the 60s right now here in Florida, and the anticipated temperature will be 56 degrees Fahrenheit at liftoff time per the forecast. Dragon is taking about 2,500 kilograms of cargo up to the International Space Station and bringing back about 2,500 kilograms of cargo as well at the end of its mission. This includes a multitude of scientific experiments that include biomedical, geophysical, as well as a couple of external payloads that will be attached to the International Space Station. One called Bartolomeo that will actually be installed on the outside of the Columbus module of the European laboratory on board the station. Liftoff, if it lifts off tonight, docking will be around 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or 1200 UTC on Monday. The United States is currently in Eastern Standard Time, but we transition to Eastern Daylight Time and spring forward, as they say, Sunday morning at 2 a.m. 2 a.m. becomes 3 a.m. here. So that accounts for the time zone, or the time change thing. Again, gorgeous sunset happening behind the pad right now and the rocket. So it will dock on, or it will berth rather, on Monday, and this will be the final time that a Dragon cargo only capsule goes to the International Space Station. And what do I mean by that? Well, the answer is there are two different versions of Dragon. The one you are looking at the pad right now is what's known as version 1, which is a cargo only Dragon. That is it sitting, oh, hang on. That is, yes, settings. Oh, hang on, I'll get there, folks. So sorry. I forgot that I had this thing in manual focus. Hang on. It's a new camera for us. I'm learning on the go here. There we go. There is a nice manual focus and a nice tight shot on the cargo Dragon. So this cargo Dragon is cargo only. It's the first one SpaceX began flying as part of the Commercial Resupply Services, or CRS-1 contract back in 2012. And it is taking its 20th and final contracted mission to the International Space Station, and it will be the retirement flight of the version 1 Dragon. After this, for the CRS-2 round of contract flights, SpaceX will switch over to Dragon 2. And Dragon 2 is most commonly known to us as Crew Dragon. But Dragon 2 is its official name, and Dragon 2 just has two different configurations, either crew or cargo. So they will simply build cargo versions of Dragon 2 to begin to fulfill the CRS-2 contract. This is this particular Dragon's third flight to the International Space Station, and Hans Königsmann of SpaceX earlier today said that SpaceX doesn't quite yet have a plan about exactly what they are going to do with all of the cargo Dragons that they have left over from this program. He anticipates that they will very likely wind up in museums, but no firm decision has been made. This particular booster has flown once before on the CRS-19 mission back in December, the prior cargo mission, up to the International Space Station. Joshua Green here wants to know if they have a scrub for weather, do we expect that call to be made early or as late as possible? Usually with these second instantaneous windows, those calls are made very late in the count, usually after they start fueling. Oh, a bus is going to go by in a moment, as the bus has to turn around to get us back. So apologies, I'm actually going to stop. Oh, it's not too loud. But anyway, so they usually take these single-second instantaneous windows down as far as they can, because if the weather clears, there goes the bus. You all get to see the bus that we ride to the launch pad on. But anyway, they usually try to take these single-second instantaneous windows down as late as possible, because if the weather ends up clearing, you have a shot to launch if you go as far as you can before having to make that decision. So that is, so that's what we can expect tonight. HY Land Photo, or Highland Photo, I get it now, wants to know what's the difference between Dragon 1 and Dragon 2. So in addition to just being a cargo-only craft, Dragon 1 also has a much more simpler environmental and life control system, because it doesn't have to keep people alive. It only has to maintain you know, cabin pressure, cabin atmosphere, CO2 levels for the cruise to the space station and when it's at the station and coming back. It also has deployable solar arrays from the trunk, and it's smaller as well. So Dragon 2 is bigger, has more interior volume. It has a fully working environmental and life control system for crew. It will have a less functional environmental control system when it is in its cargo only mode, and it also has mounted solar panels to the trunk instead of deployable, which streamlines the process a little more and eliminates a potential failure point. If Dragon's solar panels on this mission were to fail to deploy, it wouldn't have enough power to reach the space station, but Dragon's solar panels on version 2 of Dragon are automatically activated and they don't have to deploy. So that's a good difference in that regard as well. If you are just joining us, we have about 15 minutes left, so throw your questions up into the chat here. My producers Jared and Michael behind the scenes will pass them along to me. But you can walk in front. It's a working site, they know. So yeah, if you've got questions, go ahead and pass them along to us. So as I mentioned earlier today, this will be, when this Dragon gets to the International Space Station, it will mark the final time that a Dragon is grabbed by Canadarm2 and berthed to the International Space Station. And that is because Dragon 2s will dock to the International Space Station. So all the Dragon 2, whether they are carrying crew or whether they're carrying cargo, will perform automated dockings to the International Space Station. And this is another element of streamlining that process and removing potential failure points that exists when you have to reach out with Canadarm2 and grab it. Even though Canadarm is very reliable, you know, if something tweaks at just the wrong time, it could seriously disrupt a cargo mission or a cargo flow to the station. So that is another big difference that we will see later this year. Fall 2020 is when they are targeting the first flight of the cargo Dragon 2 vehicle and the first flight of the CRS-2 round of contracts. And just like this Dragon, just like Dragon version 1, Dragon 2 in its cargo configuration can launch either from Slick 40 here or from 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. The Dragon 2s that will carry crew can only launch from 39A at the Kennedy Space Center because that's the only pad that has the crew access tower and the crew access arm. A question here from JTTV saying, why would they abandon Dragon 1 cargo if Dragon 2 cargo is so much more complex? Well, it's not more complex. It's the same system that they're using. It's the same basic capsule design that they're using for crew, just modified for cargo. The Dragon version 2s are designed to be used up to 5 times. These are only designed to be used up to 3. They dock instead of berth, which is a far more simpler process. They have a much more easier late load capability through the side hatch of Dragon than this one does. They have simplified solar panels. So Dragon 2 cargo isn't actually more complex. It's actually a lot more simplified, and it unifies the entire Dragon system onto one so that you constantly are gathering more and more data, and as much data as you can every single time you fly. So a question here from Fortnite Sinclair, if they scrub, will they go horizontal, assuming late load? No, so all of the late load elements on this mission are good for a 24-hour turnaround, so they don't need to go back down horizontal to do a late load swap out or anything like that on this particular mission. Another question from Highland Photo, which trajectory is this going? Is it going southeast or northeast? Station missions can only go northeast. They only go northeast from Florida because otherwise they would be going directly over the Bahamas, and we can't overfly land. Sorry, just answering a quick question. To my production team on the other end, I'm talking into the microphone, so if you can't hear me, we've got a microphone problem. So that's all I got on that. So anyway, back to the question about which way is it going? Is it going northeast or southeast? It's only going northeast. Station missions from Florida can only go that direction because of land overflight and safety rules for the Bahamas. You can't be dumping stages and potential debris if there's a failure onto populated land areas. So station missions, just like Starlink missions, are always going to go northeast out of Florida at this point. So again, if you got questions, throw them up in chat. We'd be happy to get them answered for you, and everything. Very grateful. The bus stopped barely off camera. I really thought he was going to stop right in frame and make me move. The joys of being live on the ground here at Kennedy. So let's talk a little bit about the booster landing, because this will be a return to launch site landing. So after stage shutdown and separation, the first stage will flip around, perform a boost back burn, which should, in the Florida night sky, give us a gorgeous nebula of the stage 2 and stage 1 plumes interacting as stage 2 flips around to do its boost back burn. It will then fly itself back and land on landing zone 1 here at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station about 8 minutes and 15 seconds after liftoff. Now, you'll recall on the previous mission that launched in February, this was a Starlink flight, the booster did not land on the autonomous drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. It ditched itself into the ocean and did a soft water landing. Hans Konigsmann, the director of build and flight safety at SpaceX, said earlier today in the press conference that this was actually the booster itself deciding that it basically didn't have enough propellant to make it to the drone ship because the upper level winds that it encountered were not the winds that were actually predicted. They were much stronger, and it blew the rocket just enough off course that it realized it couldn't get to the drone ship. So it made the decision logic that instead of imperiling the drone ship and attempting to land and maybe running out of fuel, that it should just ditch safely into the ocean where it could soft water land instead. So there was no, and you know, I tweeted about this afterward, because a lot of people kept calling it failure, and I had tweeted that until we know what the problem was and what it actually was, it's a little premature to call it a failure. And as it turns out, it wasn't a failure of the system at all. It was the system doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is protect the drone ship if it realizes it can't make the landing for any variety of reason. And it didn't turn out to be a technical issue as the reason. It turned out to be winds pushing it too far away from the drone ship. So, you know, the rush to kind of say things are a failure is a little, proved to be a little premature on that. But the larger point being, there's no concern with tonight's landing, because the winds, we have a much better handle on what the winds are directly above the Cape and the winds that it will be flying back, and that it will be flying back through. So that's not expected to be a problem for today. A question from Larry Jackson, apparently in all caps, you said station missions only go to the northeast, but isn't there an upcoming polar mission going southeast? Yes, but a totally different trajectory than what a southeast trajectory from Florida would be to get to the International Space Station. A southeast trajectory of the station from here would involve land overflight of the Bahamas, going almost straight south for a polar orbit actually threads that gap between Florida and the Bahamian Islands, so you don't actually fly over land during first stage flight, during first stage boost back and landing or anything like that. So yes, there is a polar mission coming up on the 30th. It's SAOCOM 1B. It will be the first polar mission to launch from Florida in 60 years. The last time was 1960 that happened. But it is a totally different trajectory than the one that would be needed to get to the International Space Station. So that's why I say station missions can only go northeast out of the Kennedy Space Center and the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, because because that's true, they can only go northeast, but polar missions have a totally different southern route that they will take. And we will talk much more about that in detail when we get closer to the SAOCOM mission. But basically, it's going to hug the Cape out to sea and do first stage flight, and then the first stage will turn around and fly itself back, again avoiding land overflight of the Cape, and the second stage will then do a dogleg maneuver to angle it into the correct orientation for that particular polar orbit mission.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Live on air.
All right, shoot it.
What's the backup window?
So the backup window for this mission.
Backup instantaneous.
Right.
Yes.
So the backup instantaneous window for this one is 23, 27, 57.
Got it.
According to Hans, yes, on Saturday. So, see, I even get live on-air questions from colleagues. See, it works. It's fun. A couple of questions here. So a good question. Where is the guidance door that gets deployed on Dragon? I saw on the timeline, but I've never heard of this before. Thanks. So unfortunately, you can't actually see it because Dragon is covered with a protective aero shroud that also gets jettisoned after it's up and out of the atmosphere, so you can't see it. But it is a door in the actual capsule itself that exposes the star tracker and the navigation systems, so that Dragon can gain its bearings, so to speak, and maintain proper orientation and knowledge of where it is as it is approaching the International Space Station. This has been something that's been on every version 1 Cargo Dragon. We never actually see it happen because it happens about 2.5 hours after liftoff. And unfortunately, like I said, because Dragon is covered with its aero shroud for launch, I can't zoom in on it and show you, but I'm sure there's a graphic that we can find and throw up there for you so that you can see where it is on there. Space and out. We'll definitely try to find that photo of it. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure actually, thanks Trevor, I'm pretty sure it's actually on the other side of the capsule from where we're viewing it, so even if it didn't have the aero shroud on it, pretty sure we wouldn't be able to see it. Okay, so a question from Danny. A reused Dragon is clean on the outside, but the booster is not. Do they reskin the Dragon? That is an awesome way to put it. I like that, reskin the Dragon. They do a lot of cleaning on the Dragons, more so than they do on the boosters as part of their refurbishment, because when the capsules come back and land in the ocean, there's a lot of saltwater decontamination that they have to do with them. So that's why reused cargo Dragons always look cleaner and kind of brand new, and the boosters are just allowed to become as sooty as they become. But great question there. So I heard that Dragon 2 will have a smaller hatch. Is that a problem? For cargo, nope, not a problem. Not for crew either. You know, the hatches for the common berthing ports, which is what Dragon 1 has when they are berthed to the station, are a little bit larger than the docking system hatches, but not by enough that it would like affect or have an inability to bring cargo to the station. Because remember, one of the things with the CRS-2 round of contracts for cargo resupply of the station is it's not just Dragon, it's also Cygnus, which has a common berthing mechanism, and it's also Sierra Nevada's Dream Chaser spacecraft, which will so as well. So it's splitting the workload between the three vehicles and optimizing the fleet of resupply vehicles as well. So that's a good important factor there. But no, the slightly smaller hatch won't have an impact on the cargo that can go up. Whit Hull wants to know, I know the capsule for Demo 2 is ready, but does SpaceX already have a fleet of Dragon 2s? So they don't have a fleet of Dragon 2s, but they are building a bunch of them. Hans said he wasn't quite sure today exactly how many they would end up building on the cargo side, especially since they can be reflown up to 5 times. But there you have it. They didn't have an exact number of what they already have on hand. Although we know from some NASA slides that have gone public at NASA advisory councils and NASA and aerospace safety and advisory panels that, you know, the Dragon for post-certification mission 1, or the first quote-unquote regular crew resupply or crew rotation flight to the station for Dragon, is not yet done. It's still in progress. So that kind of gives you an idea of where they are. So they certainly don't have a fleet yet, but that is the intention, to have a fleet of Dragon 2s. Donovan Chauvin wants to know, how many flights has this particular booster been used for? This is its second flight. It was previously used on the CRS-19 mission, which launched in December of last year. So we are getting the signal that it is about time to start wrapping things up now. So before everyone goes, I just wanted to go over please come back and join us for the launch of CRS-20. NASA Spaceflight's live launch coverage will begin at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which is a 3:30 a.m. UTC time. And we will be with you through the launch of Dragon. I hope to have my co-host Das with me for that as well. So we will be here with you starting at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. UTC for the scheduled 11:50 p.m. 4:50 a.m. UTC launch of Dragon CRS-20 on the retirement flight of the Dragon 1 capsule to the International Space Station. If you have not already, please subscribe and like our channel. And turn on notifications. We only bring you these great live streams from the launch pad and videos of spaceflight. We promise we don't spam you, so please, if you don't already, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Head on over to NASASpaceflight.com to read our launch preview article for this mission, and don't forget to come back and join me and hopefully Das for the launch of the mission. Again, NASA Spaceflight's live stream for that will begin at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. UTC. Until then, I'm Chris Gebhardt, live from Slick 40 at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Have a good evening.